What's up guys, Lucky Locks here. Welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 126, which is going to be another one of the LFA events that are hosted in Brazil, which we saw last year with LFA 111 and LFA 112, and they produced some really high level fights last time. Looking at the card here, it looks like they're going to do the same thing this time around. We're going to have a featherweight belt on the line, as well as a welterweight belt on the line in this event. And with that said, let's get right into the first fight on the main card. The first fight we're going to be looking at is between Tamires Vidal and Queila Braga at 135 pounds. We have Vidal, who's going to be the younger woman by 11 years in this matchup. She has a 5-1 record on a 4-fight win streak at the moment. Has won over Martina Jindrova, who just got signed to PFL for this upcoming year, and her one loss is Carol Hossa, and that came in her second pro fight. So she's the Samurai Fighthouse 135-pound champ. 4 of her 6 fights have been at 145. Has a base in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. She's a Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, has a really strong body lock, good clinch game, good takedown defense, good get-ups if she is taken down, and has a good top game of her own, good transitions, able to get dominant positions, and good ground and pound when she postures up. Braga, on the other hand, has a 5-1 record to match Vidal, scored a round 1 knockout last fight. She is a boxer, fought on the prelims of LFA 111 last year, and that's where she took her only loss as a pro. In the meantime, she's gone on to win 2 more fights, and she's got really quick hands. Has that base in boxing and uses it quite well. Really nice combinations. She rips to the body. Vidal has a really impressive resume thus far in her career, though, and she does look the part. Has a win over Jindrova, which has aged very well. And I think her grappling game is going to be what wins her this fight on Friday. So, in this opening bout on the main card, I am going with Tamires Vidal to get the win. The next matchup we're going to talk about is a featherweight matchup between Gabriel Braga and Jose Delano. And Braga, we last saw him on the LFA 112 prelims. He scored a knockout there. He's 23 years old, 6-0 so far as a pro, and it's come against pretty solid opposition. He's a well thought of featherweight prospect from Brazil at the moment, and in my opinion, this could be his toughest matchup yet. He has good footwork, he's got good low kicks, teep kicks up the middle to keep the distance are nice as well. He gets his elbows involved, gets his knees involved, and he throws pretty good volume on the feet. I like the way that he goes to the body. You always like to see that. He's got sharp combinations in the pocket, and he knows his angles on the feet. Very intelligent fighter in that sense. He is a strong grappler as well, has a good top game, heavy ground and pound. And Delano's going to be standing across the cage from him, and he is the Shuto 145-pound champ. And he's riding an 8-fight win streak right now. But honestly, that championship bout was kind of the only high-level fight that he's had. The other guys that he's fighting, I'm not super impressed with. You've got guys that are 6-12, 4-4, 0-3, etc. He's got a 67% finish rate, and he's a decently well-rounded fighter. He's a serviceable striker. He's got good ground game. He advances on top. He's proven to be a submission threat as well. He has 4 submissions and 9 wins. But I think Braga is a good prospect, man. I could 100% see him signing with a big organization after another few fights. This is going to be a stern test for the kid, but I think he's up to the challenge here. I think Braga has something special, so I am going with Braga to get the win in this bout. We're going to go ahead and move on to the light heavyweight division. We have a fight between Rodolfo Bellato and Thiago Vieira at light heavyweight, like I said. Bellato is a Team Nogueira fighter. He's 6'3 with a 77-inch reach. He's got a 100% finish rate, and he was knocked out in 25 seconds in his one loss. Started his career 5-0 against not the greatest competition, then got starched in 25 seconds by an 0-0 opponent, like I mentioned. But that 0-0 opponent was Victor Petrino, who is actually really good currently. He's 6-0 now with 5 knockouts, and just finished Gadzhimurad Antagulov in UAE Warriors. And the last 2 fights for Bellato have been strong wins, so he picked himself up after that loss. Picked up a win on Future FC, and then we saw him on LFA 111 last year, where he won as a decent-sized underdog with a round 1 submission over Carlos Eduardo, and he looked quite good in that match. He has some kickboxing experience in the striking realm. Grappling-wise, we've seen some pretty decent grappling out of him. He was taken down in his last fight, but scrambled to his feet and secured a takedown of his own right after. His top game looked really good, and it has looked good in previous fights as well. He is a solid jiu-jitsu player. He's got good transitions, damaging ground and pound from dominant positions, and he's really good at getting to the back. He's shown to be a submission threat as well. He's grabbed 3 of those so far as a pro. And Vieira, on the other hand, started off 7-0, then goes over to Brave CF and goes 0-2 there, against really tough opponents though, Carlston Harris being one of them, comes back to Brazil and goes 2-0, goes over to Poland after that, loses in a title fight to a now KSW fighter, and then loses to Rene Pessoa in the main event in Brazil, and takes a 3-year layoff after that, so he returns this year, and he KO'd Carlos Eduardo in the first round. So both of these guys have finished Carlos Eduardo in round 1 in each of their most recent fights. Vieira has a 100% finish rate as well. He's been finished in also all 4 of his losses. So he was fighting at 170 before, then at 185, now at 205, and this is his second consecutive fight at this weight. He has 10 knockouts in his career, pretty much all in the first round. 3 of his 4 losses have also been knockouts. And he's a good striker. He could definitely nuke Bellato early. We've seen him struggle, though, with his takedown defense in the past, and some of those instances are against really highly skilled grapplers, but we've also seen it in some of his earlier fights, too. So pre-tape, I kind of thought I'd want to side with the dog here, but Vieira is just a little bit too reckless for me. I think he can definitely find an early finish on Bellato while they're standing, but I can also see him overextending and getting taken down. Bellato is a natural 205-pounder. Vieira has been at 185. He's been at 170 in the past. He's big at those weight classes, to be fair. He's 6'2", but we've only seen him once at this weight class, at least recently, to my knowledge. Vieira has been finished in all 4 of his losses, has a 100% finish rate. Bellato also has a 100% finish rate and was finished by KO in his 1 loss, so I seriously doubt this one sees the scorecards. And if I need to pick a side here, I'm going to go with Bellato, just for the reasons that I mentioned, and I feel like he can probably get this one done inside the distance. I feel like no matter who wins this one, it's probably going to come inside the 3 rounds. Now we are up at heavyweight for the next one between Andrey Vieira and Eduardo Neves. And Vieira is undefeated at 5-0. He defeated a former Jungle Fight heavyweight champ in his last fight, but his strength of schedule has been kind of a mixed bag. 5 fights, some weak opponents, and some pretty solid ones too. He's got power in his hands, but it's heavyweight. Everyone does. He can get a little bit wild at times, start swinging for the fences a little bit, but really good killer instinct when he senses an opponent is hurt. Primarily kind of a boxing style of attack, mixes in the low kick sporadically. Doesn't have much more than that in the kicking department from the tape I've been able to see. Had some success in the clinch in his last fight, and in a lot of his fights really. Had success on the ground as well, and was able to get some back control as well as some time in full mount. Defensively, his grappling looked good, has a good sprawl, gets to his underhooks well. Doesn't look like the most athletic guy, but has pretty decent speed and movement for the weight class. Neves, on the other hand, is a 4-0 pro, so someone's O has got to go in this bout. Saw him on LFA 111, got a KO in under a minute, but hasn't fought a really strong strength of schedule coming into this fight. He is training at Pitbull Brothers, which I love to hear. He's got that 100% finish rate. He's very young still at 21 years old, and the Tapology measurements are actually incorrect. He is 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. And he's a lot quicker than you'd think he'd be at that size. He wins fights pretty quickly, so not a ton of tape on this guy, but he's got great power in his hands, pretty good head movement when he catches the rhythm, but he has to be on his game there early. We've seen him get clipped before, being a little lax in his defensive responsibility. He was dropped in his second fight, was able to survive a few scrambles and get back to his feet there. And we've seen a little bit of grappling out of him. The wrestling looks okay. He's got a decent clinch game. Takedown kind of fell into his lap in his pro debut and had top position, ended up landing an elbow which led to a bad cut and caused a stoppage in the second round. And we've seen other times where he hasn't really been able to rack any control time. That second fight he had was a real roller coaster. At one point he was taken down himself and his opponent was able to take him out rather easily, but he also had a little bit of success in that department at different times as well. Obviously was able to come away with the win, and I feel like this is the first real test for the 21-year-old in Neves, fighting a legit guy in Vieira who is a grown man at 32, in his prime. Vieira has had his share of weak opponents, but I give him the advantage slightly in the strength of schedule. Had a great performance against a former regional champion in Andrey Miranda, and I picked Neves to win in his last fight, but this is a spot where I just need to see it to believe it. He's still very young, still developing as a fighter. Could he win on Friday? Absolutely. He's had trouble with lower level opponents in the past, though. He's always been able to overcome it and find the W, but I think this is going to be his toughest test yet. And, heavyweights are just generally volatile, so I'm going to lean to the dog here. Vieira open plus 130. The line has come in a bit now. He's around even money, around minus 105. That's not really good enough for me to play, but he is going to be my lean in this fight at heavyweight. Moving on to the featured fight of the card, we have lightweights. Ismael Bonfim and Andrey Augusto. Bonfim is 16-3 on a 10-fight win streak, so that's very impressive. And we saw him in the main event of LFA 111. He beat Handel de Sa via decision, and 2 of his 3 losses were over 10 years ago now. And one of them was Adriano Moraes, who just KO'd Demetrius Johnson and won. He's a champion in one championship. And the other one was 7.5 years ago now, and that was Renato Moicano. Bonfim is the federal fight lightweight champ, and he's a pretty big lightweight. He's fought lots at 170 as well. He has a 75% finish rate with 8 knockouts, 4 submissions, and has been submitted in all 3 of his losses. Striking-wise, he has a boxing background. He is a 4-1 pro boxer, 24-3 amateur boxing career, and has good power in his hands. He's got nice body head counter sequences, does a good job of finding a home for strikes. He doesn't waste a whole lot, and he's got a heavy right hand. So he's praised for his boxing acumen, of course, but he's a solid grappler too. He has run into trouble with it in the past, but he was extremely young in those losses, and 2 of them have aged extremely well, which I mentioned. He displayed solid takedown defense and grappling and defensive grappling in his last fight on LFA, and he has good cardio. He'll be able to go hard for 15 minutes. Augusto will be standing across the cage from him. He is on a 7-fight win streak at the moment. He's the Open FC lightweight champion in Russia and was the Arena global featherweight champ in Brazil. He's been featherweight and lightweight for most of his career, whereas Bonfim has kind of been between lightweight and welterweight. Augusto has 5 knockouts, 3 submissions, and he's never been finished himself. I don't think he's going to have an advantage on the feet here in this matchup. Defensively, I think there are going to be some openings for Bonfim to land. I'm not sure Augusto offers much of a technical threat standing. Does have some good power though, actually. Bonfim has never been finished by strikes. He has been finished by sub, however, and Augusto is serviceable in the grappling. He's strong in the clinch when he gets to the underhooks. He's got a low center of gravity, kind of a stocky build, able to push guys against the cage, decent takedown offense. He likes the double leg against the cage, tries to get the hands locked and take you for a ride there. Have seen him struggle a bit to secure control on the ground. Defensively looks pretty solid. Not sure how much he's going to have to show that here, because I feel like Bonfim is going to want to be standing for the most part in this fight. And I think Bonfim is going to be the more technical fighter. I think he has the advantage on the feet. I think Augusto needs to make this fight dirty to get a win. Get in the clinch, try to land some takedowns. And I think Bonfim is just going to be a little bit better on the feet. And if they strike for 3 rounds, I feel like Bonfim gets this one done. I could see this being kind of a back and forth fight, but I think overall Bonfim is going to get the better of Augusto on Friday. I'm going with Ismael Bonfim to win this fight. That's going to bring us up to the co-main event, and it is the welterweight championship on the line. Exciting fight between Gabriel Bonfim and Eduardo Garvon. Bonfim was supposed to fight for the LFA welterweight champion against the most recent champion, Carlos Leal, and as you may or may not know, that was a tournament-style Grand Prix, same night. And Bonfim won his first bout via knockout in round 3, but had concussion symptoms afterwards, so wasn't cleared to fight in the championship bout that night. Gets a shot now as Leal has moved on and the belt is vacant once again. Bonfim is 11-0 at 24 years old. He has a 100% finish rate with 8 submissions, 3 knockouts. Not terrific strength of schedule outside of 1 or 2 bouts. His last fight on LFA was probably his toughest match to date, and he did pass with flying colors for the most part. He looked awesome in the first round and for most of the second. Did get clipped and stunned with a right hand that had him in trouble momentarily in the second round, but recovered well, comes out in the third and ends it within the first minute. He trains with Vicente Luque at the moment, and he comes forward, he throws feints, he has a snappy jab, solid boxing game on the feet, has a background there, and I want to say he was an amateur boxing champion in Brazil. He's got fantastic hand speed and footwork, diversity of his placement is great, and we talk about his striking, but he's an excellent grappler as well. He's got 8 submissions out of 11 wins, great jiu-jitsu chops on offense, and defensively he's good too. He's a pretty big welterweight, hard to secure position against him, and he's also just a great athlete. Garvon, on the other hand, is 13-3-1. He's getting the sort of short notice call for this fight. All of his losses have been to tough opponents. 2 of his 3 losses have come by submission. He's never been finished by strikes. He finished his opponents in a little over half of his wins at 60%, has a real nice win over the most recent LFA champ, Carlos Leal, back in 2014. He's got decent stand-up. I think Bonfim is a little slicker and more technical there, however. Good grappler, good takedown offense, strong in the clinch as well. Just a high-level fighter in general. This is a high-level fight here. This is for the title. But I got to go with Bonfim in this one. Both these guys are pretty big welterweights. I think Bonfim has the advantage standing. I think his jab is a lot more functional and will be one of his biggest advantages in this fight. I think it's going to be difficult for Garvon to get inside and land combinations. I could see him landing some hooks around the guard, but I just don't know if he can win a fight standing here against Bonfim. Bonfim is dangerous on the ground as well. This should be a great fight. I have Gabriel Bonfim to win here and become the LFA welterweight champion. Okay, main event time. We have an exciting matchup between Jonas Bilharinho and Rafael Barbosa for the featherweight championship. And Bilharinho is the first round combat featherweight champ. He was the jungle fight featherweight champ, but lost that title back in 2016. He took a 3-year layoff after that, came back in 2019 on Future FC and scored a flying knee KO. And then he was supposed to fight for the LFA title in 2020 against current Bellator fighter and LFA standout Justin Gonzalez. That event was unfortunately canceled, and he fought Kane Kawhi in Dana White's Contender Series, scored a round 3 wheel kick KO last year. That was an amazing knockout, and the fight also featured the famous double nut shot, where both guys went down after a strike to the groin. That fight actually was really close though going into the third round, and Bilharinho did well to win it with that knockout. Didn't get a UFC contract that night, but if he is able to get the LFA belt this Friday, he could get another look from them, and if not, I'm sure another big organization wouldn't mind having a look at him. He is an exciting fighter. He has a 9-1-1 record with an 89% finish rate. Really dangerous guy. He is a slick and dynamic striker. 7 knockouts as a pro. Really long arms at 145 pounds with a 75.5-inch reach. He's got good footwork, a nice kicking arsenal, and has nice easy power on the feet. He likes to be at range, and he will sacrifice cage control and forward movement to keep that range. Doesn't mind being backed up and fighting off the back foot. He's really confident on the feet, but sometimes you find yourself asking him for just a little bit more output. He can fall in love with those counters a little bit and doesn't create as much organic offense at times. Those counters definitely score though when they land. Jonas has great hand speed. Sometimes you just need to extend that attack past 1 or 2 shots, and it's an area where he definitely could implement this. He has a really quick jab, pretty good head movement, and good ability to roll with the punches on defense. We've seen him get pushed against the cage in that Dana White's Contender Series fight. He's a tough guy to get down though. Kawhi had 3 takedown attempts and didn't land any. Came really close twice, but Bilharinho did a nice job of posting with his right hand and staying up. He has solid defensive grappling. Pretty quick guy on the feet, 5'11", 75.5-inch reach. Nice size for featherweight. Very muscular as well. He's lean but very solid. He's a good athlete. Now let's talk about Rafael Barbosa. He is 14-4 on a 2-fight win streak. This will be his 4th LFA appearance, and he made his debut for LFA as a 10-1 prospect at 21 years old. And in his first 2 fights, he defeated Cameron Grays and Nate Jennerman. Those are 2 really strong wins in the regional circuit. He was then booked to fight Pat Sabatini for the 145-pound belt in CFFC. That fight ended up falling through. Then was booked for the featherweight belt in LFA, and that was supposed to be against Tyler Diamond, and that event was unfortunately canceled. So he goes to Future FC and loses a split decision to a very experienced Luis Nogueira, comes back to LFA and loses to Jamal Emmers, and then goes back to Future FC and loses another split decision, this time to Elismar Lima, a guy who's been fighting in Russia lately. So he's on a bit of a skid at this point in his career. He was 12-4 at 23 years old. Then he goes down to Road to Future, and that's, an event under the Future FC banner with kind of younger guys. And to be quite honest, it was a bit of a step down in competition. He got a round 1 submission there, then goes back up to the regular Future show, and that was his last fight. He was able to keep the momentum going there with another win. So he's got 2 wins coming in here. He's back in the mix for a regional title and a really strong organization. And he's going to need to watch out for the counters of Bilharinho in this one. I see Barbosa initiating a lot of the exchanges in this fight, at least early on. He's not afraid to go first, and he is composed in there. I like the way that he's in and out, tries to land 2 or 3 shots at a time, as opposed to Jonas, who's kind of looking for more 1 or 2. I like Barbosa's movement. He's got quick feet, does a nice job setting traps. He'll feint to the body and throw to the head once the hands drop. Facing a southpaw in Bilharinho here, he has a nice check right hook that could be very serviceable in this matchup against the southpaw. Pretty good MMA stand-up. Doesn't really utilize the jab as much as he should, in my opinion, to keep the distance. Bilharinho is a little bit more unorthodox than Barbosa is. Utilizes some more kicks than Barbosa does. A bit less volume from Bilharinho as compared to Barbosa. But Barbosa is 6 feet at featherweight. He's big at this weight class. Jonas won't have the same kind of size advantage he usually does. Barbosa isn't, quite as built as Bilharinho, though, so we have to keep that in mind. Barbosa also has been a lot more active in his fighting career, for what it's worth. This is a really good matchup. This is a worthy title fight. I really like what I see from Barbosa. I really like what I see from Bilharinho. I think Barbosa is good, But I got to pick Bilharinho here. I think that Barbosa is going to strike with Bilharinho, and he already doesn't have the best distance management, doesn't find the range with a jab or a front kick enough, in my opinion. And now facing Bilharinho, who is a really good counter striker and will have a healthy advantage in the reach here. I think that Bilharinho hits harder. I think he's a little more dangerous. I think Barbosa is going to come forward, try to get inside, but Bilharinho will just get the better of those moments when they exchange in the pocket. Could definitely see this one being close. Bilharinho is a guy who finishes almost everyone he fights with a KO, but Barbosa has never been finished by strikes before. Jonas opened up minus 300, which I was a bit shocked to see. I saw him being more of a slight favorite. Now he's down around minus 125, minus 115 in some places. I feel like that's a little bit more fair, and I do like the favorite in Jonas Bilharinho to win here and become the featherweight champion in the LFA. So that's going to do it for my LFA 126 breakdown, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate everyone who takes the time to tune in. Best of luck this weekend, guys, and as always, I will catch you on the next video.